Now we get to the more complex part of this setup. We've now got an interviewer and an interviewee, or rather the other way around. We've got two cameras. We've got the FS100 on REAM, which we've been using largely in the same position. So what I was saying to you earlier about designing the lighting in such a way as you can add more lights to it. The complexity comes in here because we've got a second camera angle. And what I've done is I've been spending a bit of time looking for shots. Now, only you can do this. I can show you how I do this room, but every room you go into is going to be unique. And you are going to have to work at finding the right shots. What we're looking for is a shot that will match and cut well with the master shot. So that's the shot I decided to go for. In terms of lighting this, first thing I've changed is the key light source. I've moved to a larger softbox. This is a Rifa Light 55, 500 watts of output. It's a larger physical space. And that's now key lighting both ladies here on this side of the face. The other thing is, of course, is you've got to light essentially two separate interviews, because this camera's looking this way, needs one set of lighting, and this camera's looking this way, needs another set of lighting. And so when you start to look at backlights, you've got to be careful that the backlight doesn't actually end up spilling onto the foreground. Let me show you an example. I've had to move the backlight from Rian because it was spilling onto the face of Izzy, and we don't want that. We want the light to just be on Rian. So notice I'm panning the light off Izzy and just onto Rian. We can use the barn doors to control the spill. So that's the backlight for Rian. The next backlight I need to do is the backlight for Izzy. And that's coming in at this angle, and the same is true here. Now I'm matching with the same blue gel. This is an 8 color temperature blue, 8 CTB, and that's giving me the backlight for Izzy. And again, careful not to have it falling on to Riam. There's there. Now, on this camera position here, I feel that Izzy's face is a little bit dark, and so I've brought in a second softbox onto this side of her face, just to give me some light here for that angle, because that's the angle I'm interested in. You've got to treat this like two separate interviews, but they have to match. So that softbox just bringing some light down on this side of her face. So starting to feel quite comfortable with that shot. I'm just bringing a little bit of Rian into frame so we can locate her within the interview situation. And the most important part of this interview, of course, is always the person being interviewed. Izzy is in many ways the secondary player to the main star, so you've got to bear that in mind as well. And then what I'm looking to do is just the back wall here just looks a little bit, well, a little bit bland, and so using the projector attachment on the dado light, I've added a different gobo and defocused it. So if I pull the focus in, you can see that gobo on the wall gets very sharp. We don't want it to be sharp, we want it to be just a hint of a texture. And that's what I'm trying to do, is texturize that wall. Now that works fine there. The bed to me is looking a little bit on the bland side now. So I've created texture on that wall for this shot, and I'm quite happy with that. Now what I want to do is create a bit of texture on the bed, and what I've done is I'm using my 750 watt Arri. I've got some black wrap here, which just comes in a roll like this if you haven't seen it before. And this is just black heat resistant foil. And what you do is you take this out, it tears off like some tin foil, and what you can do is create tears in it, like so. And that you then hang on a stand with one of these mini grip kit arms, couple of the croc clips here, and then I just shine that light through the black wrap, and it gives me the similar effect to the gobo. Not quite as refined, but there's the light alone, very, very bright. There's the light and my homemade gobo, which just breaks the light up a little bit. And then by adding a little bit of warm gel, I create a bit of texture just in the background shot here. And yeah, just gives me a bit of depth in that shot. And then I think we're pretty much there. So we've broken down again into the layers. It's a much bigger shoot, and when you do start to light two people with two cameras, it's like lighting two separate interviews. It is going to take you a little bit longer, and it is a bit more tricky because you then have to worry about light spilling over. And I'm just looking at this shot now, and actually Rianne, is just looking a little bit hot. And so I'll pull that back, and I think that will just work a little bit better. So you do need to allow more time for these setups because you're lighting these two separate interviews. But other than that, I think we're pretty happy with that. And so let's have a look at those two cut together. Now, I'm not going to go into sound on this one because if I got to two people, I'd use two personal mics or two gun mics. I really want to just demonstrate the lighting here. So if you ladies could just simulate having a conversation for me.
Okay, so you're going to the vet tomorrow?
No, Monday. I'm going on Monday morning between 8 and 15, 8 and 8:15.
And you have to walk down?
Yeah, it takes me about 20 minutes to walk down, maybe a little.
Now, what's happening here is the eye line isn't quite working for the shot. And so, Rianne, what I want to just do is just stay there. I'm just going to knock your chair round a bit. Now, this might seem unnatural, but the eye line works better. And so you do have to cheat these things sometimes, and I'll just double check this shot. I'll move that to there. Okay, and you know, if you had to operate one camera or the other, I'd probably choose this one because as Rianne moves her head, I want to be able to adjust this shot. But if you are not confident, then I would certainly, you know, when push comes to shove, it's the person who's being interviewed who's the most important. So you have to make that call about which of your shots needs your attention most. I mean, this shot here, I'd be quite comfortable leaving that running because Rianne isn't moving around hugely. And yeah, no, I think that's pretty cool. So that wraps up this section. It's obviously a lot more involved. There's a lot more lights. Try not to get too freaked out. You have to build up to this, and just remember to light two entirely separate interviews that just happen to work cut together.